So lean production is an interesting area, and this picture really typifies what lean production is. It's trying to get rid of any form of waste. And I think sometimes students really miss the point of what lean production is, and it's, why are you so focused on getting rid of waste? Well, it's to reduce your costs, and that's looking at what operations is. It's marketing is the one that's going to generate you your revenue and your sales, but operations is all about the costs. And remember, these two sides are what makes up profit. So revenue and costs are what determine the profit that a business generates. So you need to be able to define the term benchmarking and describe the process and explain the benefits and problems of benchmarking. And we'll do that a little bit later, but we've also got to be able to describe the characteristics of lean production and the benefits of lean production. So as I said before, lean production is aiming to reduce all forms of waste in the production process. So there's many different areas that waste can come from, and waste really broadly can be defined as anything that just doesn't add value to the final product. So something that's just not making you profit. So anything that's a defective product that has to be reworked, that includes costs, or you just thrown away, so an opportunity cost. Anything that's overproduced, so overproducing products and then them going to waste, perishing. Stock, so it's money tied up in stock. So unnecessary processing can add, and adding anything that the customer doesn't really want and they're not really prepared to pay more for. So it could just be additional features for the product, design features that maybe look nice but don't really command a higher price. And staff members, teams waiting around idle because they're waiting for an earlier stage of the production process. For example, there might be a bottleneck that's occurred. So the principles of lean production, you've got lots of different areas, and we'll go through each of these in turn. So time-based management is basically trying to work out the most efficient way of carrying out a task and launching new products more quickly than your competitors and cutting out lead times. So you're really trying to cut out, the waste eliminated here is time. Simultaneous engineering, a little bit similar, but it's when you're developing a new product and you try and carry out as many activities at the same time as possible. So rather than doing it in sequence. So when you're creating a new product, you might have a design phase and then prototype phase and testing phase and market research phase, and you're basically trying to do this all at the same time. Now you can probably guess that's quite complicated to do, and this does happen in real life. With I worked on a programming project before I was a teacher, and we used this kind of approach, and it was quite high risk. Things could go wrong, but it did reduce the time of the project, so it was quite attractive to the client. But you are trying to eliminate wasted time and get your product to the market quicker than competitors. Just-in-time production, we've spoken about this when we looked at stocks. So it's eliminating the money tied up in the stock itself and having to rent the physical space and look after the physical space as well. And you also don't want rather than just thinking of work in progress, you don't want the stocks of finished products that there isn't demand for, because that's another type of waste. Kaizen is the Japanese word meaning change for better and used to mean continuous improvement, and it's this belief that you can always do better, but it's actually quite hard to implement really large changes. So it's much better to implement small incremental changes each day. So for example, it's easier to change by 1% each day, or maybe 0.5%, get 0.5% better or 0.5% faster, than it is to just do a bulk 20% faster, 20% better. And you're trying to reduce the amount of defects that you have, but also wasted time and production processes. And people will probably find this much easier to do, more manageable goals. And it also means that you don't have this, they often say with Kaizen, it's the journey, not the destination. Because if you just focus on, right, we want to get 20% better, and then that's it, you're not going to continue improving. Whereas if you use this Kaizen approach, you get 0.5% better each day. You continue doing that and continue making improvements. Okay, benchmarking is where you measure your performance against somebody else, and hopefully somebody else that's pretty good at what they're doing as well. You want to measure it against what we call best practice. So you learn from the best firms in the world, and many different ways you can get rid of here. But what you need to do is make sure you identify things that are actually measurable, quantifiable, and that you can measure performance against as well. So I'm just going to gloss over this for now because I've got a nice past paper question coming up where we can have a look at that. Cell production is when you split your production process down into stages, so that's quite straightforward. That's been done for years and years and years. But the work is undertaken by teams. So rather than having like division of labour, each person does a very small part of the production process. You sort of have teams, and they're taking responsibility for a slightly larger part of the production process. So this is thought to help motivate staff. They feel more useful, more kind of teamwork, remember Mayo said, can help with motivation, and the social aspects as well can help. Maslow identified that in the hierarchy of needs. But it's meant to help with feeling more vital to the production process because you're seeing more of the product manufactured. So here's an overview of the benefits of lean production. You can read that yourself, so I'd just pause there if you want to take down some of those notes. But you do have sort of problems. I mean, I haven't written anything down here for cell production, but obviously team dynamics are difficult to get right, and you sometimes have social loafers, so maybe some people that don't pull their weight in the team. Benchmarking, as we're going to go on to, if you are a brilliant company, you might be a bit protective over your processes, and it might, you're not going to say to your competitors, oh, come and have a look at how we do it, because you want to keep your competitive advantage. As I said before, simultaneous engineering is really complicated, really hard to coordinate, quite risky as well. I don't think there's any disadvantages with Kaizen. Just-in-time production, as we've seen, it can be more risky if your suppliers are unreliable. You do need reliable suppliers. You need them to be quite close to you as well. So here's a question. There has been a question on a more recent paper, so I'd go through the past papers for this. But here's a question from a legacy paper, actually, a while ago. So you can see the type of style of question. But going on to benchmarking, so the process is that you identify what you want to benchmark. You identify something measurable. You can measure yourself against somebody else. You choose a company or companies or whatever organisation to measure yourself against. You want to choose someone that's really good. You gather information from maybe customers, suppliers, various sources so that you can analyse it, and you try and implement the findings. So here we have Benton, who's built up industrial blinds. And the question is, what is meant by benchmarking? So just need a straightforward definition of it's measuring your performance against best practice to try and improve and implement changes. And then how would the Human Resources Department carry out a benchmarking exercise? So when we're looking at human resources, we need to think of things that could be measurable. So maybe, and they specifically want to look at how you improve the motivation of the staff. So maybe things like, what are their pay structures? How are people paid? Are there any bonus schemes? What are their fringe benefits? How are they setting up their appraisal process? What about their training? How often? What type of training? Those types of things. So it's got to be quite specific to the case study. Okay, so those are all the specification objectives.